Hello. Ok, dobar večer svima, lijepi pozdrav i dobrodošli na ovu prezentaciju koja je po svemu sudeći posljednja u ovom našem putopisnom nizu. Našeg današnjeg gosta Antona već ste imali prilike čuti prije jedan tjedan dana kada nam je govorio o svom putovanju u Hrvatsku, to jest na otok Krk. Danas će nam opisati jedno drugo putovanje na koje je išao sa svojom djevojkom i prijateljima. Neću vam više ništa otkriti, čim pozdravim naše strane goste, prepustit ću riječ Antonu. Hvala vam svima što nas slušate. Okay, so English. Hello everyone. Thank you for listening to this presentation. I'm really convinced that you will like it. Today our guest is Anton, who already presented his trip to Croatia, but today he will be presenting another trip which he took with his girlfriend and his friends. I'm not going into any detail. I will just I would just want to say hi to you, and Anton, you're most welcome to start your presentation.
Excellent. Thank you, and hello everybody. I'm very happy to be keeping this presentation once again, but this time I'll step 1 year back, and I'll be presenting a trip that we took in a formation of 4, traveling on Hondas. I was traveling on a Honda Transalp 600 from 91 with my girlfriend Kati, and the other couple was Christian and Alexandra, and they were traveling on Africa Twin that I currently own. And we had an idea to travel to Greece, but ended up going pretty much a longer way around, because we wanted to make some stops. Having a long trip just in one bit was not something that we were looking on for, so we said let's just have a trip where we'll visit some other places as well. So for starters, let me share my screen, and we'll go from here. Hopefully my laptop won't give me any troubles. So let me know if you can view this, and we'll go from here.
We can see it fine. Great.
Excellent. So this is the cover that you already saw. This is the team that went on into the adventure. And during this trip, we traveled from Oradea via Timișoara, Belgrade, Sarajevo, down to the island of Miet. And then we went down to Greece in Lefkada. And after that, we traveled back through Skopje and Timișoara back to Oradea. In total, we passed through pretty much 6 countries, and we checked more or less 3,000 kilometers. So we gathered from Oradea and started from here. Funny story is that just a few months before this trip, I had an accident, a car accident, and I was left without my driving permit. So in the last day, on a Friday, I sent by train with the conductor of the locomotive my paperwork for my girlfriend to pick up from Cluj-Napoca, so she could bring my driver's license, and we could go the evening in this trip. Leaving all the fun for the last moment is something that I managed to do every single time. So I was left in the situation that we almost didn't go on this trip just because I had this issue with the paperwork and the driver license. So having this said, we were gathering all our stuff, we were preparing our bikes, and on Friday at around 10, we wanted to leave Oradea to go to Timișoara and sleep over at Alexandra's parents. But given the fact that we had a lot of preparation, we had a lot of materials to put on. We were packing our stuff kind of in the last minute. We called each other. Well, to be more exact, Alexandra called us, and it was around 11:30 or something like that. We were still in a fibrillation. We were trying to get ready as soon as possible. But at one moment she called us and she was like, "Hello, guys." And the moment I listened to her voice and her tone, I just said, well, it's okay, we can relax because we're not going anywhere tonight. And just the following sentence was, well, let's head out the following morning. And I was so relieved because I knew I had some time to get some rest and maybe pack up some more and get up early in the morning and finish up the rest. So this was all good. So the following morning, we were headed out for Belgrade. Something that we did this trip was just set up a course, set up a heading, like let's head out towards Belgrade and see where we get. We talked very lightly about the specifics of the trip. We just said, well, let's stop from here and there and see where we're headed up next. And this is something that makes our trip more fun, I guess. And being so improvisable, we don't have to pay a lot of attention and have a lot of stress to all the accommodations and all the little details. So we met up at a gas station. I was with this Transalp, Indian style packed, as I was before, with all my camping gear on top of the toe box and the tank bag and everything. And this was Christian's Africa Twin, also packed up. We took camping gear with us, like sleeping bags, inflating mattresses, the tent, obviously, and some cooking gear as well. We met up in this gas station. Of course, Beautify is on my phone. I just saw all of these Beautify pictures after we came back from the trip. That's why I'm so smooth, like baby skin. And we were all excited to leave. I was parked in front of Christian, and I was just signaling him, well, please go ahead, lead the way. And having some really stretch move here with this newly fully geared motorcycle that he was riding, he ended up crushing one of his side bags just here in this pole. So he still reminds me from time to time of this and said, remember when you made me crash my bike just before we left? Well, yeah. So here we ended up meeting with Alexandra's father, who brought us some food for the road. So we ate just next to our bikes in a parking lot for some shop or some gas station that was there. And after that, we headed to Serbia, to the border. And after riding for some time in the beautiful plain country of Serbia, where you could barely see any trees, just a plain road ahead, no mountains in the background or nothing, we just stopped after a few hours in a gas station. We went behind it and we found a bit of shade because it was really hot. So we pretty much laid down. We caught our breath, and after that we just snoozed for almost an hour because we were so tired and already bored and also excited. So yeah, the scenery wasn't great, but at least we were away from the road, so no cars were troubling us. And yeah, we had some relaxation time over here, pet some cats and all that. After that, we got on the road and we headed out to Belgrade. We had no accommodation in plan, and we were just saying something like, let's head out and see where we can camp outside of Belgrade. This is us coming into the capital. Alexandra is the main photographer that took hundreds of pictures. It was a real struggle to go through thousands of pictures from 4 phones and a GoPro. So it's so hard to pick favorites, let's say. Here we were in a park next to the Danube, and the rain had some plans with us. Before getting to this park, fun story is that we parked our motorcycles next to a building. The perks of having a motorcycle is that you don't have to find parking lots. And just as we were stopping, some guy came to us with a Mercedes. He stepped out and he just handed out some visit cards and said, well, you know, if you're looking for accommodations, we have a hostel just next to this corner and you can come, and we only have 4 beds remaining and all that. And we were like, I don't know, just grabbing some random guy off the street handing out visit cards, it's a bit weird. So we kept the visiting card and said, well, maybe later, yes, thank you and goodbye. And as we were traveling through this park and visiting some military expo here and there, we were thinking, yeah, this is a picture from the stop before. We were thinking about this this accommodation option that just landed on our feet, let's say. So we said, well, maybe we'll give it a try. Let's see how the weather is. And this is where we parked our bikes. For the time being, it was all good. But when we returned from the parking, from the park after our short visit, the rain had other plans for us. So it pretty much soaked us up. And we said, well, thank God we have accommodations. Let's head out to this hostel. It was called the YOLO hostel, as I recall, and it's just in the center. So on this road, just 100 meters forward, we took a right, and there it was, the building where the YOLO hostel was located. So it was really, really close, and we didn't have to travel throughout the city to find accommodations. Of course, after all this trip, we had some, I think this is called the Pleškovica, and it's one of my favorites. My favorite Balkanic food. And while we were sitting just outside the hostel, eating up and drinking some beers, we heard someone having some car tire problems. So we went out, and a lady was just running on a flat. So we said we can lend a hand. So we just pulled out her spare tire and started to try and change it, but she had no tools. So I just head out to my motorcycle that was parked close by, and I spread all my tools there on the spare tire, and everyone was, wow, this is so cool, this is so awesome. You have all these tools with you. So it was funny that we had everything necessary to help her out and put on the spare. And it's something like this that we like to get into from time to time, just meeting up random strangers and maybe lend a hand if they're in need. I think that it's something that sticks with us for every single day as we go along on our trips. Of course, yeah, they also brought us some tissues to wipe out our hands and some beers. They were very happy that we had the possibility to help them out. So after a full day of rain, maybe half a day of rain, we just pulled out our shoes to dry them a bit till morning. And this was the view from our hostel room. And this was the end of the first day. The second day, we planned to leave Belgrade, and we headed out towards Sarajevo. I'm not 100% sure that this is the exact way we went through, but I'll just fix this with my friend when we get together. Maybe they recall this better. So this was all of us almost waking up in the hostel. We headed out to the same fast food, and we got into some it was some egg sandwiches with ham, and wanted to visit a bit around Belgrade. It was raining here and there, and we ended up going to the Tesla museum, where we saw a lot of cool stuff, a lot of inventions, some remote guided boats that was looked upon as something magical for the time it was invented. They also said that maybe Tesla trained a monkey, a really small monkey, and put inside the remote guided little boat that he had built, and trained her to move around the lake, but it was just remotely driven. This is a Tesla coil, and the lady who was presenting gave a lot of guys here and there some neon lights that were not connected, and the moment she turned it on, all the neon lights around it turned up. So this was the first attempt to having wireless electricity brought to everybody's homes, but this was abandoned for some reasons. So we returned to our hostel, picked up our bags, loaded up our bikes, wiped out the rain, and moved on. We caught some heavy rain on the road. We went through some I don't know how they call them, autobahns, the highways. We went on some highways. We got some rain, but even with the heavy rain, we were still riding with around 100 kilometers per hour in the clean space that was left by the cars before us. And we ended up in some town here where we kind of felt cold because we were coming close to the mountains. So we stopped and we dried a bit. We ate some things. We put up another line of clothing between us and the weather outside, and we headed on. We arrived really late in Bosnia Herzegovina. This was almost 11 o'clock, and we were at this point in a gas station, and we were looking into options to to stay, because of course, once again, we didn't plan ahead for anything. So we found some place in Sarajevo, and we marched on. It was really, really cold at this point because we were on top of the mountains. We were going through serpentines and some rain. Kati was shivering behind me at that point, and I was shivering as well, but I was leaning towards the engine, and from time to time putting my hand above the engine so I could get some warmth from the running engine. At some point, my chain started to make a weird noise, and I was so scared that I was going to be left stranded somewhere in the middle of nowhere, in the middle of the night, raining, cold. It's a nightmare scenery. But we ended up in Sarajevo. It was around 1 o'clock, and we called the hostel once again to confirm the reservation and where we should head out to. And after getting the confirmation, I was really, really excited. So we got to the hostel, and the guy that was looking after the hostel opened up the garage door and let us move our bikes inside. And this was yet another really close encounter with the, I don't know, with the luck that followed us around this trip. Here was the small garage that accommodated our bikes just right, and Christian helped me out with the chain to tighten it up a bit, and that solved the problem. So it was mainly a 5-minute job, but the issue was fixed. And here we were traveling a bit around the old town of Sarajevo, which was above the new town on the top of the hill. And we got to the city center to enjoy some food. We were starving after a long walk throughout the city, of course on foot, because we wanted to see all the town had to offer. And when the menu came, we just digged into everything. As you can see, we have some pleshkovica here, we have some cevapcici, we have some lamb, and also there are some I don't know what they call them. We call them sarmale. They're in wine leaf with rice and meat. What I skipped for the start of this day was the fact that we had a great coffee in the morning. After waking up in this hostel, I just went out in the street and found a bakery that sold fresh croissants, and also bought some fruits to have a great start for the day. And then came back, and all four of us, well, Alexandra is not in the picture, but all four of us enjoyed a cup of coffee and some croissants, freshly baked, some fruits. And as you can see from our looks, we were so content with this. I apologize for the ordering not being exactly specific in this day. Hopefully the following days are better arranged. So here we were throughout the city, having a lot of fun, being so happy for the nice weather after 2 days of rainy encounters. We took our time and took in everything that was around us. We went sightseeing. We followed down the narrow streets just to see how people used to live in the old times, but even in the current times, because these places are still on, but they're a bit updated. And whenever we see the sun in our faces, whenever we feel the warmth, it just warms our hearts altogether. And the scenery was really impressive from the top of the town. This ended up to be a day that was just reserved for sightseeing and gathering our strengths, because we were pretty demotivated after 2 rainy and colder days. And this was all these names were the names of the people that died, I believe, in the Sarajevo war that happened in the 90s. And this is a small portion of the wall where all the names were laid out. This is a really, really small portion of it. Here we were at that restaurant, and Christian was more than happy to help us out with handing out the menus. We didn't want to wait any second longer for our food to be brought to us. After getting our tummies filled, we traveled around the city for a bit. I took some pictures of the scenery, of course. This is us enjoying a beer or 4. The good thing about the days that we take for pauses and the regrouping is that we can enjoy a cold beer in the warm day. For me, for example, not leaving the country for another trip than a trip to Budapest one time. This was all new, so it was really amazing for me to see all these very different styled, shaped buildings, all the mosques. I think I never saw a mosque up close before this trip. And we ended up in a museum. It was an unregistered museum for the victims of the war that was not approved by the government, but they kept it up on donations. And we visited that. It was pretty much a horror fest over there because there were some really explicit pictures, but helped us understand the traumas that the people in Sarajevo went through during the war. So we were closing up this day, and we were headed to the hostel to get some rest for the following day. Day 4, we headed out through Mostar and up to Miet, where in Miet we were going to meet some friends of Alexandra and Christian that were already on the island in a camping spot. So before leaving Sarajevo, we went to a tunnel house, and from underneath this house, the people living here and a lot of militia that fought against the regime during the war built a tunnel from underneath the house, underneath the airport, and through to the other part. It was 500 meters or maybe a bit more, where they took weapons, food, people to get out of Sarajevo. The moment we left Sarajevo, we ended up on some great highways, and we could just keep throttling on and enjoy the scenery. And this was a good comeback after all these small cracked roads through the small villages. And we really enjoyed the change of scenery. After Serbia, this was really, really great to have. And after going through some twisties, we ended up in a pretty tight spot where we had a police encounter. After overpassing a big truck on our way down, we were stopped by the police. And after some mumbling around, we ended up getting almost arrested. Well, not arrested, but they wanted to give us a huge fine because we passed the truck in a continuous line area. I don't know how they managed to find that out. Maybe the truck driver told them minutes later when he got here, but I ended up pretty much bribing them to just leave us. Well, I didn't bribe them. I just offered them money to pay a small fine for us when they get to the city. But you get my point. So it was a bribe, all right. But at least we ended up leaving this place without our driving licenses being suspended or anything, because that would have been the end of the trip pretty much. So we marched on, and the scenery was getting better and better by the mile. And thankfully, the girls in our bags took a lot of pictures. And it's so pleasing to see these nowadays. So we were headed up to Mostar, as this was our pit stop, but not the full stop for the day. And as you can see, the scenery is just great. We were just riding along. We weren't in a hurry or anything. We were just swiveling from left to right. We were rotating our heads almost 180 just to pick up as much as we can from these outstanding landscapes. And we were so grateful that we had not only great weather, but also these very nice points of view from the motorcycle seat, because driving in a car, a lot of this scenery is lost due to the case of the car. So here we arrived in Mostar. We parked our bikes mainly on a side road and headed out to visit the main area and see the Stari Most, I think it's called. It means the Mostar Bridge, I think. And the old city was really, really amazing. All these almost polished stones from all the tourists were just shining. And we were in a pretty good place. We had a good ride. We had some great scenery took in, and we were headed to have some food put inside our tummies. And here is a quick view of the steps, and you can see that they're almost mirror-like, all the steps that went on the bridge. And there's also some contest from now and then. Some guys just dive from this bridge, and I think it's an annual competition. And the view is awesome. I'm just left speechless at this point. We were just next to the bridge, and there were some houses that on the balcony had some terraces made, and we were pretty much in a good spirit. One funny thing about this area is that as we were sitting down, we just heard some familiar music coming from the speakers, and it was some Romanian music. So that was a fun find. And here was some underground discotheque, well, at least under the mountain. And up there is the DJ spot. So we left Mostar and headed towards Miet. And as soon as we crossed into Croatia, we got a little lost, but we ended up finding a way better road through some villages and some olive gardens. And the scenery was spectacular. There were no cars on the road. There was a gravel road that we were traveling on, but that didn't stop us because it was easy to move through it. The name Mislina cheered us up a bit. We say Maslina to the olives, so this was a fine find. And here is the road that we were going to move to. And we had to move around this lake to get to the other part to end up to the border crossing or something like that, because we were in between countries. But the view from upstairs was spectacular and the sun was coming down. As we stopped for a moment and looked into the ferry travel times, we found out that we were very, very close to catching the last ferry for the evening, so we had to march on a bit. So we stepped up the pace and had some really nice twisties here and there. And came down to this passing. We didn't understand why there was this kind of border here. I think it just separated some regions. Nevertheless, we marched on. And we got just in time to catch the last-minute ferry. So we ran and bought pretty much the last tickets. As we were waiting to be loaded up, a lot of cats came by our bikes because they were really hot, the bikes, I mean, and they just stood around the bikes to get some of that warmth. So we loaded the bikes on the ferry, and from here on we just said, well, this is it. We managed to reach it just in time. Just like the other evenings, we ended up on the last minute to the ferry that took us to Miet. And we were pretty content about all this. The bikes were secured there. We didn't tie them up with anything, but the sea was calm, so we just said, let's wing it. If they fall down, we'll manage then. So here we were on the ferry, having a really shiny moon. The moonlight was so powerful, it looked like a huge light in the sky. Well, the reflection, at least. Of course, we took 50 or more pictures, but we got a few of them right, with enough light to see our faces. And here we came down and found out that the camping site was just across the Miet Island. So we had to go cross island in the middle of the night on a single row road. And I was kind of running low on gas, and the gas station was closed. So we said, let's give it a try. Maybe we'll make it back tomorrow and get some gas for it. So we went on the mountains, on these twisties with nothing to see around us, just these rocks. And we ended up in the camping site on the end of day 4. The following morning, we got up really early, at least me and Kati, and we went out this morning to grab some food. Alexandra and Christian are not late bloomers. I don't know what you call people that wake up really late, but they were sleeping really, really good. So we were around the campsite at 8 o'clock, and we said, well, let's just go grab some food and be back while and when they will be up, we'll just eat together. So I went down and filled up my tank, took some photos here and there. Of course, you can see we are not properly equipped for a motorcycle ride, but we managed to get in one piece anyway. We just wanted to feel the breeze on our skin because we were so close to the sea. And the weather was, again, amazing. Having all that island all for ourselves, being very early in the morning, pretty much raised up our spirits once again, even though we arrived really late the night before. We went sightseeing to some beaches that were close by. It was, again, a really nice time to see the sea once again, and seeing it so clear just put us in the right mood to go swimming a bit, even though it was really cold. And of course, all these stony beaches didn't help much to our feet, but we managed to go by anyway. The scenery was astounding altogether. What's better than being on an island surrounded by water and having all this beautiful scenery around? So we stayed here for almost 3 days. This was our second day on the island, and on this island, on this camping spot where we camped in the I don't know what you call these leaves that when they're dry you use them for soups as a condiment, as a spice. We call them daffin. I didn't translate these. Laurs, something like this. And we helped ourselves with fruits from the trees that were all ripe. And after that, we went to a park on the island of Miet, which was a really big park. And even though I negotiated with a guy for some bicycles and they gave us a great price, the main thought for all our guys was to just head out on foot. But we ended up walking for a lot of kilometers on that park. But it was a really nice stroll. It took us 3 or 4 hours altogether, but it was really nice. And this was a spot that was bringing water from the ocean into the mainland, the lake, where we of course got in and swam around. And being really nice biodiversity in the water, we saw a lot of really colorful fish around. Unfortunately, we didn't have our GoPros charged, so we couldn't take pictures. We also saw some octopus, and I think it was a lionfish, the one that is really, really poisonous. The two guys behind Christian and Alexandra are the friends from Timișoara, Alexandra's hometown. Altogether, it was a nice stroll, even nicer as we managed to get closer and closer to the place that we left our bikes at. We arrived there almost at sundown. You can see the great parking spots that we have mostly available everywhere we go. We ate up some seafood. We were so hungry that we didn't manage to photograph it, so we just ate it and then thought of pictures. And this concluded the stay to this island. So the next steps were to go throughout Dubrovnik to Kupari. Well, we just said let's head to Dubrovnik and see where we will land at. So we left Miet, and this morning, and stopped in some place to eat. Just outside, just after leaving the ferry spot, and we parted ways with the friends from Timișoara. And we got to Kupari, where we got to a camping site and went out sightseeing. And after that, yeah, this is the road towards Dubrovnik. And this is the bridge just outside the Dubrovnik, I guess. There was a huge cruise ship just parked in the port. And the fun stuff is that leaving Miet, we met up with a Bulgarian guy, which was looking at our bikes, and he said that he also had a Transalp. He said something like, there is no engine like the black engine Transalp has, so that raised my spirits and gave me a lot of confidence in the bike. But also he spotted that Christian's back tire was really cracked, and we didn't manage to notice that before. So we went to the camping spot, we put up our tents. After Christian managed to find a guy that ordered a spare tire for the bike. I set up camp, of course, Mr. Muscolo. So the tire was going to come to us the following day. So just took a day out on the seaside and enjoyed what the place had to offer. All this was a luxurious seaside hotel complex that was abandoned after the war. In the evening, we went sightseeing into the old city of Dubrovnik. And of course, having all these lights and all the populated places left us with a nice feeling of, I don't know if I could call it adventure, but a nice feeling of holiday traveling. There were some really great buildings inside those, and I just had the feeling like going through some Game of Thrones scenery, Game of Thrones set. Of course, we got to the outside of the the fortress, and all the lights on top of the hills were spectacular. So every way we turned, we just saw a lot of great spots to enjoy and to indulge into with our eyes. We were also really wasted. We were so tired for all this walking, so we got to camp. And the following day, when we left Kupari to head out to Kotor, we woke up to a heavy rain. Almost 10 centimeters of water were surrounding the tent. Thankfully, the water didn't get in, so we somehow managed to get out of the tent. Christy and Alexandra went out into Dubrovnik to have the tire changed. Of course, having the rain stop here and there, they took some time and had some pictures taken to remember the travel. And this is the guy that helped out with the tire change. Christy told me that he was really impressed by him. So they headed out at this point to get back to the camping site, but of course took some time. In the meantime, me and Kathy were still in the camping site, gathering all the tents and having to wash them, and we took them inside some big bathrooms and waited for them to get a bit dry before packing up. And after this, we headed out towards Kotor. Here in the middle of the lake was were two small islands where some monasteries were built, and you could only access them by boat. So we went around the lake, having some fun along the way with all these twisties. The road was pretty much dried out, and we ended up at the citadel of Kotor. We parked just outside the citadel on the pedestrian walkway because they're bikes, so nobody bats an eye. And we went on sightseeing, and we ended up walking on top of the mountain this evening. We got the last few tickets, and it was the last going up passage. So we strolled through the city a bit because it was getting dark, and we had all these with us, all the main gear, all the chargers and everything, all the stuff that we used to put in our tank bags. The helmets were left on the bike, and we just tied them on the handlebar with the anti-theft chain that we had on the bikes. The scenery was awesome, but we had a long way still to go up. As the sun was going down, the lights coming up, it was a beautiful thing to see. And this is from almost top of the hill. Of course, we found a guy that probably took some generations to get to this point. And we came back into the city with great effort, being really tired after carrying all the heavy stuff up the hill, and ended up at some place to eat. And then found out that there was a hostel just behind us. After running through this city that was laid out like a maze, we ended up in the hostel just behind the place we ate. So this was pretty unexpected, but also not uncommon in our trip. We had to pay for 4 beds because we were 4 people, but only 2 single beds were available. So we just stretched something, and we slept 2 in 1 bed. And this was from outside the citadel. And here were our bikes that were expecting us to ride them in the following morning. As then day 9 came, we woke up in the middle of the medieval city of Kotor. Christian had some issues with the rain in the shoes, but after a few hours we were back on track. We had some coffee, we had some breakfast, had a quick stroll throughout the city to see the places we didn't see the evening before. At the hour I got up, it was pretty empty. So it was really nice to have pretty much all the citadel for myself, because I went really early. It was like 7:30 in the morning. So we headed out from Kotor. We saw some great spots where we could stop and maybe drink a coffee, have some water, maybe a sandwich here and there, some chocolate. Of course, some pictures to remember the spots we stayed in. After that, we just embarked on our motorcycles. As you can see, there was a pretty tight spot, but nobody complained. well, almost nobody. And we ended up next to the border here, where we admired some Yamaha townmates with this drive shaft. Mostly everybody around this small town had these kind of bikes, just driving one hand and the other just holding buckets of stuff. The gas station was so empty that even the chickens were traveling undisturbed on the roads. So we marched on, and we had some really hot weather coming our way. When we stopped at the border, we got some fruits from the people along the road, and then we headed out to Mali It Robi, I think it's called, and we found a great hotel just outside the sea spot, and we camped in the back of the hotel. It was again one place that we found along the road just a few hours before getting to the spot. So we went to the seaside, to the seashore, and of course digged in all this new scenery with the sand on the ground. Of course, the bikes were just digging their tires in. We were pretty hungry, we were a bit tired, so we just laid down for a few minutes digging in the sunset as the sun went down. Of course, we were soon approached by the local dogs. The spot was really great. So we had some easy meals. We dined with some seafood. After that, we took some strolls on the beach. Christy got really friendly with the local dogs around. On day 10, we left Mali Robit to head out into Albania some more. After going around the seashore one last time, of course, because we wanted to get some sun and the sea all together, we went out for a swim. After that, packed up our bags. This is the back of the Mali Robit camping hotel, where you could also rent some rooms, but we didn't want to spend any money on rooms because we had this great place protected and guarded for ourselves, so we just tented out. We camped outside. We had a stretch of asphalt that we laid our bikes on, so they didn't sink into the light ground. After that, we headed out. Of course, leaving that place, we had some really great weather. We cut up a huge storm that almost killed us. There was a huge rain and strong winds. It was something incredible, never experienced before by us. And just before getting to these sunny places, we were almost blown away from the highway. We had to stop our bikes, jump off, and hold them upright because the wind was so strong that we couldn't move on. So we stayed there for, I think, 20 minutes before leaving again on a milder weather. So we were all wet. But getting to the seaside again, we saw some great scenery here and there. Well, what am I saying here and there? It was everywhere around us. It was great. So just imagine riding on these twisty roads, having the sun on your back, so no blind spots, having the sea on one side and the mountain on the other. It's just a dream coming true for mostly all the motorcyclists. So as we were drying our clothes and our morale, we started going uphill into the mountains to get to the other side. And of course, after some rain, the colors of the sky were incredible. And also, as we were getting closer to the top, we could lose our heads into the clouds. So we got to a really nice spot where we could see the mountain and the sea coming together. All of this upstairs is not fog, it's actually a cloud. downstairs is some foggy weather, but up here there are just clouds. So it was awesome to see. Of course, we took tons of pictures because we didn't expect to see this, because we didn't pretty much lay down the road. We just went to where our instinct took us, and it took us to some amazing places. Of course, our bike kept us really warm along the way. And there was some sun coming out to warm us once again. And seeing all this road laid ahead of us with mostly no traffic, we were just excited. So we traveled as far as we could until the hunger took us in, and we took out the pace and headed out to Borș. Here we ate some lamb chops and of course some pasta. And as we were eating there and drying our socks, we just encountered some guys that were having trouble with their cars. So me and Christian went out and started pushing his car. Unfortunately, it didn't start, but at least he got it going down the road to where he was living at. So it was the most we could do, being some hybrid car or something like that. The following day, we woke up to find out that Alexandra was a bit sick. So she ended up staying in the room for the day. But me and Kati went out to get some food, brought it back, ate at the place we were staying at, and we stayed just outside the restaurant we ate the night before, because the brother of the owner of the restaurant had a guest house just across the street. So we didn't even have to look for a hostel or hotel or anything. They just invited us to stay over after asking around for accommodation options. Of course, the sight from the balcony was once again astounding. The bikes were under the olive tree, safe and sound. I took the luggages apart from the Transalp so I could get with Kati on some sightseeing this day. We just agreed that we would leave Alexandra to get her strength back together. And we went to some beaches here and there. We had a little swim and then came back. Of course, in the middle of the night, well, not in the middle of the night, but it was around 9 o'clock, we ended up taking Alexandra to the to the small hospital. I don't think it's a hospital, it's just an emergency room for tourists. And the owner of the guest house was kind enough to give us a ride with his car. So we took her in, and she got some glucose into her body, and that strengthened her up and gave her enough power to get up on the bike the following morning. So after having these adventures in Borș, we had some breakfast here in the restaurant next to the guest house, which was really nice. It had a waterfall and everything. It was full of trees. It was an amazing set. And we packed up after this, and after thanking the owners, we left our way. We headed out towards Lefkada this time, taking pictures along the way. And the scenery was getting not duller, but it was more brownish, more burned out by the sun than we were being used to. Of course, we found out a donor bike on the side of the road, and the guys inside there told us that one of them told us that he had some adventures with some girls in Romania, and he had a really nice time there in Bucharest. So they just paid us some drinks. Of course, we were on the bikes, so we took those drinks and poured them into a recipient to take with us for the journey that was to come. So we marched on. We marched towards Lefkada, having some great scenery. Almost right after passing the border into Greece, the scenery totally changed, and the trees were different, the roads were different, everything changed around, and we were really feeling that Greece atmosphere. Of course, we had some traditional coffee that was really, really good, and we ate big time because we were again hungry from the road, and we ended up on a farther side of Lefkada in a camping spot just next to the seashore again. And the scenery was pretty nice. So we stayed here for one more day. We had some breakfast just outside the small patch of land that guarded the camping site from the sea. And after having some small bites, we leased a boat. I mean, not leased, we hired a boat to run around for the day. We didn't need any license, so we just traveled with our, let's say, own boat, and stopped wherever we wanted to get in some diving experience. So wherever we wanted outside the small beaches around, we just stopped our boat, we anchored it, and just went out to swim. And this way we could get out to a lot of pretty remote beaches, really small patches of land that were only accessible by boat, or if you swam a kilometer out there. So we profited a lot of all these private places that we ended up into. And it was a really nice change of scene, riding on something with 2 engines rather than 1. Unfortunately, we didn't see much fish in the waters around because it was an area heavily fished, but at least we had some fun times driving the boat around. Here, Christian and Alexandra went out for a little trip. I was too exhausted to go out, so I just ended up staying at campsite, but I went out sightseeing. And now that I look back at it, maybe I should have stretched my legs a bit and have this trip done with them. But I think it's more of a reason to go once again and see what it was left out of my itinerary. So thanks to Alexandra and Christian, we managed to see the places that we didn't get to. On day 14, we left Lefkada, and we headed out to Skopje. And this was pretty much the longest stretch that we had, stretch of road, almost 600 kilometers. And after leaving Lefkada with a pain in our heart, you can see that we're really excited to leave, because this was such a beautiful place. We were all like, I know we have to leave, but why couldn't we stay 1 more week? We pretty much packed up, said our goodbyes, took in the sea once again, and then left out. And we were riding along the Macedonian highway, where Christian was experienced some issues with his lights, so we had to stop in the middle of nowhere on the side of the highway where it was really dark, and see how we could fix the lights of Christian bikes. And after some smart engineering on his side, he just pretty much MacGyvered himself a cable that past the lighting module, and he managed to put the lighting on direct, so no lighting module there. And we managed to get to Skopje in the middle of the night, and pretty much got into a hostel. This hostel was also along the way found on the internet. We sent an email. They sent us the address back, and we just went straight to the rest. We followed the GPS all the way. We were really tired because it was the longest stretch of the road, and the following morning was another huge stretch of road ahead of us, and we were really, really tired. We could barely get out of bed, so we stayed up until 9 o'clock or 10 o'clock maybe. After that, we took some showers and got out to see that it was a pretty sunny day. So this pretty much recharged our solar batteries, and we went out for a stroll. We dug into some meat pies, which were made out in some bakery, that are eaten with yogurt. It's something traditional to Macedonia. I don't recall the names. I'm really bad with my memory on these parts. Then we went to see Skopje's city center, where there were a lot of statues everywhere. I think they had some sales there on the statues store, so they bought a lot of statues, and they all put them in one place in the city center. And there was a huge Alexander the Great statue there. We dug in a bit into the scenery. Everywhere you looked, you could see tons of statues, and every single bridge had 10 or 20 statues on it, as you can see in the background. Of course, being very warm, the weather was hot, so we ended up hunting for the shadow spots. We also saw a pirate ship over there somewhere. I think it was a restaurant being built. And after all this sightseeing and getting stuffed with some chocolate, of course, and some coffee, we got on the road to head out towards Timișoara. But the road back was mainly on the highways. So after tens of stops, we ended up to the border with Serbia, Serbia with Romania, on day 16 in the middle of the night. And from the border there, from I think it was here somewhere, here, just outside the city, we barely managed to get home and get in some sleep. So in the morning we headed out towards Oradea, and right around Arad, here in the middle, we got a huge storm, and I think this storm followed us from Albania and got into Romania, where it did a lot of damage. A lot of forests were taken down, and we barely could drive straight. So we just ended up getting cover. Christy and Alexandra went a bit further and got cover in this gas station. Me and Kati stopped way before that and got cover in a restaurant and helped the owner get the doors in place so they could keep the rain outside. And on day 16 we ended up in Oradea once again. So this was pretty much what we went through from Oradea, Timișoara, Belgrade, Mostar. We had a really huge travel map on the end of the trip. The plan was mainly to go from Oradea as fast as we could to Lefkada and stay for a week, but we ended up spending a lot more time on the way than in Lefkada per se. So my advice for you is just live your life to the fullest, enjoy every opportunity, don't stress out about planning every single centimeter of the road, and just do this with love in your heart and just the open road in front of you. Just live the day, because at the end of the day, if you're in the right spirit, you'll find a solution for every single problem that you have along the way, and that's for sure. Thank you for getting the time to listen to my story here, and I'm very grateful that I had the opportunity to share it once again.
Well, thank you for your presentation. It was very interesting, and I love your message that you share with us. I definitely agree. So, Tony, if you agree, if anybody has any questions, they can ask you maybe. Znači, ako imate bilo kakvih pitanja za Tonija, možete slobodno postaviti pitanje.
Okay, so back said how many days? There were 16 days, so 2 weeks and 2 days altogether.
Yeah, so any more questions? Još neko pitanje? Okay, I would like to ask, how is, I heard a lot about bad traffic in Albania. So is it really that bad, or does it just depend on the place where you travel?
Well, let me just say the line from the X-Files, the truth is out there. So both Bosnia-Herzegovina and Albania had some bad drivers. We encountered a lot of them during the night in Bosnia. They just passed us in the tunnels and on the curves and everything. But having our riding style more, I don't know, more relaxed than having to get in some place really fast, we could take the time to avoid all the issues in traffic. So I couldn't say that we had any major issues with traffic and traffic participants. It was pretty light and it didn't bother me much. So, and Christian also agreed with this. We were also concerned about the traffic. Some drivers in Albania are pretty bad at driving. They don't respect a lot of rules, but we didn't encounter many people that could pose any concerns to our trip.
Yeah, that's good. I mean, there are bad drivers everywhere, so
Yeah.
you need to be careful everywhere you go. So it doesn't really matter where.
Yeah, as long as we rode with care, we had a lot of attention dedicated to the road ahead of us because we wanted to get in one place, in one piece. Let's say in all the places that we had before us, we just rode safely. We drove with care, and we didn't have any major issues.
Yeah, that's the most important thing.
Mijo, I can't pick a favorite because I love them both Croatian and the Greek Sea. So I love them both. I should say that I love more the Croatian Sea, but I enjoy the Greek food better. It's not that one is worse than the other, but if I would put these preferences, a +1 for the Croatian Sea and a +1 for the Greek food. The price of food and hotels. Well, in Albania and in Bosnia, the food was pretty okay. It was affordable. It was pretty much like in Romania. It was a bit cheaper than in Croatia, but it was pretty much the same level in Croatia and Greece. So Albania was both Albania and Bosnia had some pretty good prices for food, and also hotels and hostels. I think we paid around in Belgrade. We paid around 12 or 13 euros per night per bed, and we paid around 15 in Kotor Citadel, given the fact that it was in the middle of the medieval fortress. Altogether, I couldn't say that it was more expensive than Croatia or Greece. It was pretty cheaper. It was pretty much cheaper than Croatia or Greece. So if you want to travel that way, don't worry about the price because you'll be used to the price in your country and maybe find the prices over there cheaper, in my opinion.
Yeah, okay, thank you for sharing that information. This may be useful for people who are planning their trips.
Mm-hmm. We ended up we paid with euros mostly, but everywhere we could we paid with our credit card. Now that Revolut has come in our country, all the trips that we took further on, we just used the Revolut card because it had no conversion taxes. but mostly we paid, yes, with euros. And whenever we were in the bigger city and we had some, I think in Sarajevo we changed some money into dinars, but then we changed it back when we left Bosnia. Dinars, I think. I hope I'm correct on this. As I said, memory was bad.
Yeah, they have mark in Bosnia and dinars are in Serbia.
Dinars in Serbia.
Yeah. But it's,
Alright.
you can,
Thanks for the correction.
no problem. Okay, so any more questions?
Also, on all the highway tolls, we could pay with euros as well, because the difference between euros and the local currency wasn't that big. It was cheaper to pay with the local currency, but having 3 or 4 euros for the bikes to pass the tolls, it wasn't that much, so it wasn't a big difference.
Yes, okay, thank you. So if there are not any more questions, so Tony, would you like to add anything?
Oh my God, we have tons of stories along the way and hundreds of videos altogether, but I think this pretty much concludes the summary, if I may call it that, after 1.5 hours of talking. This pretty much concludes all the trips, and sincerely, I'm really grateful for the opportunity, because I got to relive this great trip we had. We was the first European trip we had in my life, and that got me some appetite for other trips. And other than that, what I got out of this trip was the fact that going abroad on a motorcycle in the 2000s is not such a big stress as it was before, because we have the GPS, we have the cards with us, we have euros, and of course we have the cell phone with roaming coverage, and we can pretty much get to everywhere we want. And a lot of people speak uh, a bit of English, at least along the way. So we were really stressed the few days as we got into Albania and Bosnia and all that. But after 4 or 5 days, we were really relaxed and said, well, there's no issue, there is no real danger out there. There is no bunch of bad people waiting for us to get with our motorcycle and kill us on the road or something. We just digged in the countries and took in as much as we could from the local people, and just enjoyed our trip. And it's not such a big trouble, it's not a huge thing. You don't have to plan every centimeter of the road, you don't have to bring free spare motorcycle with you. Having a good motorcycle pretty much kept in good condition will help you along the way. Of course, I won't recommend going out on a huge trip with a motorcycle that you have problems with, unless you know how to fix it along the way. So yeah, have a good steady bike, have enough money to fuel it up and fuel yourself up. And if you don't want to carry a lot of it, you can check out some hostels along the way, because you'll mostly find a lot of places that you can sleep in. Because as you saw, we only camped in 3 places altogether, so we could have done without them. Except for Miet, where we camped on the island, all the other places had accommodations available for us if we wanted to sleep inside the cities. And the price difference wasn't that huge, and you could do with 15 or 20 kilograms less equipment on your bike. Just get out there and enjoy the world, because it's a beautiful scenery. And given the fact that after we get out of the pandemic restriction, of course, there are no wars in those areas in this part of Europe, and you can just enjoy yourself.
Yeah, and this is the most important thing in every trip.
Exactly.
Okay,
Just enjoy yourself.
yeah, somebody asked what is your next trip. I have some insight, but I will let you answer that.
Well, we were planning to go into Spain this year, but having to ride a lot up to Spain, we decided that we will take a plane to Spain, and then get a bike from there. We could rent a bike and then go around Spain and maybe visit different parts of the country. I was in Crete a couple of years ago, where we went by plane as well, and we took in some accommodations, and we wanted to stay for the whole week and a half, but ended up staying only half the time because we rented a car and we went across the island of Crete with a car. So if you don't have a really tight schedule and you don't want to have every centimeter of your trip laid out and scheduled, then you can just take a few days of accommodation and then get out there, get into the country, drive by or rent something and just find some accommodations along the way, because there is no place on earth, I believe, at this moment where you will go and you won't find accommodations. We pretty much lowered our standards of living because we ended up in hostels with 8 or 10 beds, but we didn't care because at the end of the day we just wanted a place to sleep in, and that's pretty much all. We didn't want private showers, we didn't want huge TVs or anything. We just wanted a bed to stay and dry and have something comfortable for our backs for the next day. So when we came into Kirk last year, we didn't even unpack our tent because we only stayed in hostels and stayed at Sylvia and all that. So you can do a round trip without camping anywhere. Only if you intend to camp somewhere, then do it. Whatever your heart desires.
Yeah, exactly. That's so everybody can choose actually what they want. So
Exactly.
yeah.
But we ended up getting our heads towards not carrying all the camping gear, and we will plan our next trips just to stay at hostels.
Yeah, that's probably because the price difference between camps and private accommodation is not so big.
Yeah.
So basically, it's really no problem anymore.
Mm-hmm. I saw a message. Please announce if you do that. Are you referring to my Spain trip? Yeah. Well, we're pretty much waiting for the restriction to get out of our way, you know. So we are going definitely by plane into Spain, and we will definitely rent a bike from there to go sightseeing. So this is the plan, but we're just waiting on the restrictions to be raised.
Yeah, so hopefully maybe after you do that trip, we could hear something about that like this. So hopefully. That would be
Well, I hope that as well, because
yeah,
I'm really, really eager to get some miles on my bike or any other bike.
of course, definitely. Well, I just hope that all this thing will be over as soon as possible and that we'll just be able to travel normally. So that's it.
Yeah, hopefully.
Yes. Okay. So if nobody has any more questions, so first of all, Tony, thank you for this nice presentation. They were really nice pictures, really nice experiences, and you could really see that you enjoyed your trip very much.
I certainly did.
Yeah, it's evident because I mean it was really beautiful. So I won't waste your time anymore. I'm really glad that you gave this presentation to us, and thank you again. And yeah, like I said, hopefully we'll be hearing about your Spain trip the next winter or so. But we'll see
Yeah,
how
fingers
that.
crossed.
Yeah, fingers crossed, definitely. Okay,
Thank you.
so
Thank you a lot.
thank you, everybody. Thank you for participating. Thank you for listening to Tony. I hope you enjoyed, and I'm sure you enjoyed your his presentation. And yeah, we can look forward to our new trips and his to hearing about his trip and everything. But hopefully, this situation will be over as soon as possible. Thank you again. Evo, zahvalit
Thank
ću.
you. Have a
Thank you.
great evening.
You
Bye.
too have a nice evening. Evo, zahvalit ću svima i na hrvatskom. Ja vidim da ima nekog ovdje koji govori hrvatski. Hvala vam puno na slušanju. Nadam se da ste uživali kako u ovoj, tako i u svim prethodnim prezentacijama. Spomenula sam naljepnice. Ako neko slučajno želi naljepnice, može nam se javiti preko naše stranice ili preko društvenih mreža, pa ostavite adresu i stići će vam na adresu. I to je to. Evo, ugodna večer svima, nadam se da ste uživali. Čujemo se drugom prilikom. Toni, thank you again. Have a nice evening and say hi to Kati.
She says hi back.
Bye.